This video, we're going to imagine if every fighter in Smash Ultimate released today. If you look at, well, almost all of Ultimate's DLC fighters, you'll notice many more fleshed out mechanics for each one. Joker has Arsene, Steve has Mining, Hero has like 1,000 moves. But what if Mario got that DLC type treatment? What about Sonic, Pikachu, Bowser? So many characters who came out in older Smash games which were hindered by either a rushed development schedule, this need to have X number of characters in the game resulting in quantity over quality, or even debuting in the very first entry in the series and there not being as many updates given out to those characters since then. But with Ultimate's new DLC editions being spread out over a few years, a lot of these restrictions aren't there anymore. So what's the true potential of every character? Before we jump into it, YouTube tells me a large portion of you aren't actually subscribed, so I guess it's my duty to tell you to do so. I don't know, this screenshot's like 2 months old, let's just start. Mario's always secretly been one of my least favorite characters in Smash, not because of what he is, but because of what he represents. He's the face of Nintendo, so thereby he's the face of Smash, and because of that, he's sort of penciled in as the quote-unquote prototype character for the game, serving as a basic model to showcase moveset conventions, which kills me because I know there's so much more potential there. Because if Mario was included in Smash with this DLC type treatment, if he released today, I think he could be one of the most unique characters ever. In this scenario, Cappy would need to be added because if Mario released today, Odyssey's gotta be referenced, right? You could use him to jump off of after being thrown as a form of recovery, or maybe as a grab where he'll essentially capture the opponent like they're an enemy in Odyssey and attack them from within. The main potential I see here lies in the power-ups though. It boggles my mind how these items are Mario's main gimmick, yet he only uses fireballs and a swing of his cape from Mario World in his moveset. What if Mario was able to hit a question mark block which could provide him with many different abilities to use for a short period of time? This way, even more abilities like the Tanuki suit, the Super Bell, and more could be included alongside the ones which are already available, and because you're fully possessed by this power-up now, you could have multiple moves be modified instead of just one. What if when Mario gets the cape feather, his recovery would become similar to Steve's by allowing you to actually fly with it, along with the ability to use his current cape flip attack? If you think it's a little too far-fetched to add many more power-ups in a system like this, my argument would be that if the protagonist of Dragon Quest can get 21 different moves in their down special, 13 of which are completely unique with no duplicates, I think it's reasonable to assume that if the protagonist of the Super Mario franchise was getting a moveset designed in the same vein, we could be getting at least a handful. His final smash would also likely be changed to reference Odyssey or Bowser's Fury with one of the giant forms from those games to promote newer material. If Mario released today with the DLC type treatment, we could easily be in for a massive upgrade. If Luigi released today, he may not need the power-up gimmick though. Sure, it would make sense for both brothers to have them, and there's definitely enough power-ups to go around to give him different ones like the Ice Flower, Acorn Suit, and the like, but Nintendo modernly is still making Luigi's Mansion titles, so they may want to focus more on that series. Give him the Poltergeist as a new down special, which can have 3 main abilities to rotate through. Fire could be the main damaging option, water could be more like Mario's flood attack, and ice could be able to freeze the opponent. This would keep him similar to his brother in terms of them having a variety of abilities to use and cycle through, but different in that they're essentially representing 2 separate series, which would be a great parallel. Original moves like the green missile could be changed to fit in an actual reference like the hammer from Mario and Luigi, since nowadays almost every move seems to allude to something. The green fireball wouldn't be needed if he's given the power-up box, so maybe the invisibility from Mario 64 DS could be included as a countering option, a bit more obscure but still a unique ability to Luigi. And since in this scenario Dr. Mario isn't needed to solely pad out the Melee roster by getting another Mario clone in there, we could stray away from these 2 current characters a bit more now. I don't think the question mark block would be needed for power-ups for this guy, but I do think that the pills should still be included as his neutral special. If he had to get a new gimmick, since he's a doctor, he could use test tubes and flasks as forms of attacking, with some shooting poison like Piranha Plant side special and some being used as healing options. His final smash would likely also be altered to have the pills come down in the Dr. Mario style from the air rather than being a clone of Mario's Mega Fireball, since he'd be completely refocused on here. Kinda odd for this guy of all characters to be getting a more advanced moveset, but hey, I guess that's the point of the video, right? Somebody I wouldn't trust as my doctor is Donkey Kong, who currently serves as the slow big brute force character for the game, and if they added him today, I highly doubt that changes. He's almost universally known for his arcade and country appearances, and in there, that's exactly the role that he serves. For the life of me, I don't know why they haven't added a barrel throw into his moveset by now, considering it's his most iconic ability by far, along with the barrel cannon as a form of recovery, since he used them to shoot out of in literally every Donkey Kong Country title. Having a charged punch and collapse as attacks aren't the most creative moves in the world, but they are fitting and reference series material, so I don't see that changing too much. He'd be in for some slight changes though if he was released today. Link got the Breath of the Wild coat of paint for Ultimate, so he's gotta reference some of the new abilities from that game in Smash, right? Well, I mean, the bomb changes, so there's something. annoying, but if they had more time to focus on him, you know there'd certainly be more than just that. There's definitely potential to use more, if not all, of the rune abilities in his down special instead of just having the remote bombs, but even if they don't want to go that route, why not incorporate the weapon breaking mechanic? It could be in a similar vein to Banjo's Wonder Wing, where your sword will be unusable after a certain period of time, but since it's a smash attack, we don't have to go that far, and it could just be buffed to start and decrease in power after every hit. Revali's Gale is also a must to include. I mentioned this in the one more move video for every character, and it totally makes sense here to allow Link to shoot up in the air and float with it as a new recovery. It could also be cool to see Link use Daruk's protection as a countering option of sorts too. In Breath of the Wild, this creates a barrier around Link which protects him from attacks when it's up, so if they held off on a couple of the other possibilities that I mentioned already, this could be a nice addition instead. Regardless of which direction they go, some decent changes would definitely be made in this scenario. Sheik, on the other hand, I'm not entirely sure. You'd think she would, considering that prior to Melee, the character wasn't playable in anything, and now with the advent of Hyrule Warriors, there would be a significant amount of material to base off of, but outside of adding the Goddess's Harp, there doesn't seem to be a ton of major elements to include, and because of that, she may end up back with Zelda, who, aside from using her rapier in Hyrule Warriors, doesn't have too many abilities unique to her to add to the set. A lot of their moves are originals and based on abilities which they aren't directly shown to use, which is fine because their current moveset fits the characters, but when you combine that with the fact that Zelda and Sheik were never intended to be split, and it was purely hardware limitations for Smash 3DS that triggered the decision, who's to say that Nintendo doesn't see this gimmick as more fitting for the duo when designing them from the ground up, since they also gave it to a modern DLC spot with Pyra and Mithra, but individually I only see slight changes happening to these characters though, although I don't see that being the case with some of the other Zelda reps that we've got coming up. In terms of Samus, she could have a few moveset changes, with one of the main ones being her jumping into her Morph Ball as her down special. This would allow you to roll around quickly across the stage, and if you press B while in this form, you deploy some bombs that she currently uses in her set, but this would be a better implementation of it, I feel. Her charged neutral special could also be able to freeze the opponent when fully charged to get the Ice Beam in there, which has been included in newer titles. Other than that, I don't see too many abilities which are just screaming to be included in her current set, so I guess Samus has aged better than a lot of the other veterans. Same goes for the Zero Suit version of the character. There isn't much new introduced ability-wise for her since her Brawl implementation, so I doubt the moveset would change very much. A similar argument could be made to Zelda and Sheik about Nintendo wanting to put these forms together, but I'm sure fans prefer them separated, especially in tournament play, where you're not able to use Final Smashes to unlock the Zero Suit form at all. Yoshi is a very interesting one to me, because a lot of his core abilities have stuck around through the series, since prior to Smash 64, Mario World and Yoshi's Island would establish the groundwork for the two types of Yoshi appearances. The rideable one for the mainline Mario games, and the sole playable representative version for the Yoshi titles. And right now his moveset feels more like the former rather than a strong mix of both, which I believe it should be. The rideable form of Yoshi does have some more to offer though, with the Fruit from Sunshine and the Peppers from Galaxy 2 potentially being a new special, a la Pac-Man's Neutral B, where you could cycle through and one would give you a slight boost based on what it would actually do. Yoshi should be able to breathe fire through one of these, especially since that's one of his most iconic abilities in this vein. His wing form would likely be an official recovery form at this point, since while his flutter jump does make sense, it would also be cool to see him get another reference in there. Another change would be with how he throws his eggs, as I think collecting them throughout the match every time he eats a foe and then being able to aim them like he does in the actual Yoshi series would be a lot more accurate, and I feel would have been the case in Smash 64 had the team had more time, since that's how they were implemented in the original Yoshi's Island. Overall, there's some massive potential for an upgrade here, even though his moveset may seem fitting right now to some. The reality is that's because it's how he plays in the most popular Mario games in series history, and people probably don't remember oddly specific Yoshi titles rather than that. Kirby's main ability of copying other character specials is a brilliant mechanic and absolutely would still be in if he was released today. Maybe even more copy abilities could be implemented in other moves if they want to go all out with it, as it's very highly requested, but something I think would definitely have to be in order as a new side B based on the Cutter Boomerang, since it appears more often in newer games, so I'd hedge my bets on that. The Bomb attack appears frequently in the series too, although I don't know how likely it is to supersede any of the other specials that he's got right now. Overall, Kirby's aged decently well, even though some changes could be in order. Meta Knight is an interesting case though, as if I made this video shortly after the release of Brawl, I could point out that barely any of the attacks that he uses references series material, but the funny part about him is that after his Smash debut, HAL began to include some of the Smash original moves in actual Kirby games, which has actually helped his evolution throughout the years. He's still missing his staple projectile attacks, the sword plunges, and some other moves, but overall the moveset does feel fairly accurate currently, and I doubt it would be significantly different if released today. Pikachu, being the protagonist of an RPG series, may have more unique possibilities than you'd think at first glance. If Hero can get a JRPG move selection screen, why not the protagonist of Pokemon? You could put his 4 moves on the screen and choose which one you'd like to use, much more unique, right? Well, the problem is I don't feel that it would fit the character's playstyle too well to have to stop and choose a move like this. Pikachu is a small, quick, electric rodent Pokemon who doesn't stop himself to select moves. That's done by his trainer. He thrives on this fast-paced playstyle, and it wouldn't feel right to have you select a move from a screen like that for this type of character. We could incorporate more moves like Volt Tackle as a powerful strike along with Iron Tail, but for him along with Pichu, I don't see the move selection screen working out too well. In the case of Pichu, I think that if he debuted today in this DLC style, I doubt he'd carry over the mechanic of being hurt after using most moves, since that doesn't reference series material and was likely only implemented into Melee to add some slight differences between the two without much effort due to the rushed development time for the game. Instead, I think Pichu could fulfill the role of a fast, gimmick-based character. Allow him to use Nuzzle to slow down the opponent for a little while in a similar vein to Paralysis. Use Sweet Kiss to confuse the opponents and give them a small chance of hurting themselves while in that state. He could set up Nasty Plot to increase the power of ranged attacks and so much more, being balanced by the fact that all of these moves would be extremely punishable and the lightweight of the character would not lend too well to being blasted with a powerful hit in return. This, I feel, is the ideal scenario for both, a slight change for Pikachu and a pretty major one for Pichu, and I know many fans would probably like the move selection idea, but I think there still could be a chance for it to be included with a different Pokemon representative. If Pokemon Trainer released today, I'd say there's definitely a shot to be able to choose moves for Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard. They all need the down special to change the Pokemon, and they all need the up special to recover, so with those last 2 slots, we could still have the possibility of a small move selection. Maybe give 7 possibilities in total per Pokemon, with 4 selectable at a time to reference the 4 moves that could be selected at a time in a Pokemon move screen, which would result in the same number that Hero has in total. These moves can include Scald and Razor Shell for Squirtle, Leech Seed and Poison Powder for Ivysaur, Fire Blast and Dual Wing Beat for Charizard, and much more. If there's ever a chance to implement it with another character, this would be the best choice, since if you're playing as a Pokemon trainer, keyword in trainer, this is what you'd be commanding the Pokemon to do. It obviously couldn't be implemented in Brawl, since even if they wanted to, the development time constraints probably made it difficult to get 3 basic movesets and never mind give them a bunch of different attacks. But in this scenario, you never know, it may happen. Captain Falcon as a character is well known to have been devised from the ground up for Smash 64, so if he was to be completely reworked today, a lot of the same moves would have to remain since, well, that's what the F-Zero series had ran with. And since F-Zero hasn't gotten any new games since 2004, it's difficult to devise anything new. He should probably use his blaster once in a while, though I mean it's been strapped to his leg forever. The benefit of Falcon being mostly the same though is that there's absolutely no excuse for Ganondorf to be based on him anymore. If Ganon was reconstructed today with no constraints, there's clearly a lot of potential. First of all, he absolutely should be using the Dead Man's Volley by shooting balls of light at the opponent like he does in the memorable Ocarina of Time boss battle. He's got no projectiles at this point, but if they added him in the DLC style, he absolutely would. Ganondorf would also get a levitating recovery instead of whatever this is, since once again, it's an ability that he's known for using, but he doesn't use it in Smash. There are so many other possibilities from boss battles in the series, from using the Trident, to using various other enemies to aid him, to swinging his cape like Mario does, to something as simple as a charged Blade Slash like he does in Wind Waker. They took a step in the right direction for Ultimate by actually allowing him to use the sword, but if he was getting completely reworked, the portrayal could still become even more accurate. Fox, Falco, and Wolf are not only all similar in terms of having the same core moveset in Smash Brothers, but they're also alike in that the majority of their interesting abilities in their series are derived from flying around in these spacecrafts, not running around on their own. Even though they're shown to do this in the series, it's not their main form, so by keeping them like this, their potential is all hindered. But if we are keeping them on the ground for these new movesets, I could see Fox taking on a greater inspiration from Star Fox Adventures, since that game doesn't have much referenced yet, which, while I'm sure some fans are happy about, there's no denying it's a very unique title, and in a scenario like this where Nintendo would be desperate for uniqueness, it could all be helpful. Falco and Wolf would use the bombs from Star Fox Assault as additional attacks, which would enhance their current playstyle, or maybe a weapon cycling system could be included like Min Min's arms. But ultimately, since there's very little new material to go off of for them in this form, like Falcon, I can't see Nintendo changing them too much, even in a DLC type role, unless a ton of originality is incorporated or they're playable in their R-Wings or something like that. This is definitely not the case with Peach though. Since her inclusion in Melee, she's become playable much more frequently in the series, even getting a starring role in Super Princess Peach. If she got a complete rework, she has to use the emotional abilities from the game. As you'd fill the Vibe Scepter, you'd be able to select tucked in a wheel like Shulk's abilities from the 4 that are available in the game, which could increase your speed, heighten jumps, knockback, and the like. Parry would have to be included as well, since he's the name of her parasol in the game. Not only would you get this Super Princess Peach representation in Smash, but the current references to Super Mario Bros. 2 with Peach's first playable appearance and all that, they could still be included as a historical nod, overall creating a more well-rounded and unique character as a result. Bowser has a lot of potential for change. While some of his current attacks are seen in modern series material, his kit bears similarity to Meta Knight in that many original attacks would be created for his implementation that would only become canon later. Like Peach, it would be neat to see him get a historical reference to his first appearance where he can throw hammers at Mario like he does in Super Mario Bros. But one of the most likely changes I would foresee is to his fire breath. In newer 2D Mario games, Bowser is shown to be able to shoot fireballs in a variety of patterns, sometimes shooting up to 5 at once, and based on how long this special is charged, that number could be determined by that. Bowser's downward slam could still be kept since it's a nice reference to Mario 3, although I wish that was made into his down air instead, so that his down special could be changed to the slam from Mario 64 that radiates shockwaves across the stage. One big change would be in the final Smash department. While Giga Bowser is a neat original, I feel Fury Bowser is much more likely to fulfill that same role if he was released today. Nintendo modernly doesn't innovate as much for Smash movesets, so why bother doing that with one of the most established villains when an easy promo is right there for the taking, right? Easy to say that there are at least some decent changes which can be made, and maybe even more if they really wanted to. Ness and Lucas are difficult in this vein since neither of them have appeared in any games outside of their origin titles, which these movesets were indeed based on. It's a running joke in the series that Ness can't actually use any of his specials in Earthbound as they're all based on his party members, but I feel that it's still fitting as an overall representation for his game rather than representing just one character from there. PSI Rockin', Teleport, and Shield, along with some others, I feel would be spread throughout these characters to differentiate them more. Young Link has to be one of the most under the radar, misrepresented characters in Smash Bros. You don't see him get as much attention as some of the others, but there's so much more potential for him in a DLC type role, and if he were to be released today, the transformation masks would have to be the main gimmick of his set. Through New Down B, Young Link could don the Deku, Goron, or Zora masks, which would grant him the abilities that those provide in Majora's Mask, leaving the Fierce Deity Link 1 for the final Smash. Kinda interesting how time is the main mechanic of Majora's Mask, yet it's exactly that which prevented a potential fighter from representing this game accurately. A lack of development time for Melee. He's only appeared in 2 Smash games thus far and clearly wasn't a priority to update for Ultimate, so this massive potential hasn't been touched. Aside from the masks, his moveset could also include the Mirror Shield as a projectile reflector to be more accurate to his appearance, but other than that, I think he'd remain mostly the same. But this one main mechanic with masks, that would be a massive change on its own. Toon Link is another disappointing character since his current moveset is just the Brawl offshoot of Young Link, which in turn was an offshoot of regular Link, and unfortunately it stayed this way over the years, even though they brought Young Link back. With Wind Waker being a modernly beloved entry in the Zelda series without much representation, I feel Nintendo would do good in adding some material from there in a modern version of this character. What if he used his Skull Hammer as a powerful blow instead of just the sword? What about being able to shove opponents back with a gust of wind by using the Deku Leaf? Maybe you could have a cycling system for the arrows that he shoots as well to alternate between the light, fire, and ice ones to make him more unique. If we execute these changes for all 3 Links, we not only get a modern iteration of the character with the Breath of the Wild focus, an older 3D iteration with Majora's Mask, and one which references the Toon-styled games with a Wind Waker focus in Young Link. Combine that with all the retro references built into the core of their movesets currently, and you'll have a great variety of all 3 characters based on the same thing, which Smash struggles with executing very well. Ice Climbers are a similar case to Dr. Mario to me, not much series material to reference, really only one game, so it's difficult to imagine their moveset turning out too differently, although I would expect more of the vegetables from the game to be incorporated and they'd serve different purposes. Some would heal you, some could be thrown at the opponent, things like that. R.O.B is a similar case, a character with maybe even less direct series material to go off of. I feel they did a good job in Brawl with mostly original creations for his set, and if he was made today, I feel maybe even more unique mechanics could be included, but it's difficult to handpick move ideas for a character who doesn't have his own game. It would be fun to see them reference his Mario Kart DS appearance though, since that was his first playable appearance and he could charge across the stage in his cart. Pit made his debut in Smash prior to his series revamp with Uprising back in Brawl, meaning that his moves were either original at the time or based on one game from the 1980s, so basically the Ice Climber situation, and while they've changed him up a bit, a lot of it remains the same. Implementing the staff, palms, and cannons in a weapon cycling system of sorts could be a fun way to implement a variety of abilities from the series, and considering Sakurai's great relationship with Pit, how he's essentially brought this dormant series back to life, I could see them focusing a lot closer on his moveset if he was in a DLC type role. Dark Pit could be more of the same, although I don't think it's the best idea to be covering Echo Fighters in a video like this, since it makes the assumption that we're including 7 more roster spots than the game actually has, but I did go more into detail on every single Echo Fighter in a previous video, which I'll link at the end of this one. Palutena is the most recent of the Kid Icarus cast to be included, and as we're going to see with a lot of the Smash 4 characters, because we're creeping closer and closer to modern times, combined with the increased comfortability of the team to deviate from standard conventions, a lot of them won't need that many big changes, but I still feel that Palu has some untapped potential. First of all, it would be very fitting if they brought back Pit's Centurion attack from Brawl, but give it to her instead. This is her summoning ability after all, and since Pit has some boxes that are yet to be checked off in his own right, slotting it into one of Palu's slots would be a pretty cool idea. As a projectile, she could shoot 3 balls of light in Uprising, which would be probably more unique than the explosive flame attack, so they could either replace it or include both, with one being a charged attack. Again, it's something I see as more likely if they put the amount of time into her as they did into Ultimate's characters. Wario's Smash implementation gets a lot of heat from fans of the Wario Land series of games, because if you look at many of the move origins, the default look for the character, and the logo which is displayed under the series which are represented in Smash, he's mainly meant as a WarioWare rep rather than the much more popular series of games that he's known for. It's kinda odd to me that they went this way, but I guess they saw uniqueness in WarioWare so they ran with it, but that can't be the entire reasoning here. A lot of it probably had to do with Brawl's development time crunch, and if that wasn't the case, I could see Wario using many powers present in the Land series in his moveset. The Jet Hat could be a cool recovery, Dragon Wario could allow him to shoot fire, Crazy Wario could provide him with a counterattack option of sorts through burping. There are just so many of these abilities which, if they had time to fully implement them today, he'd likely have to go along with some of his current attacks. Maybe give a special slot to the Shoulder Bash, since it's one of the most iconic abilities which was heavily requested to join his moveset in Ultimate, and even though it did, it was still in a minor role, which likely indicated that it was a last second change. There's definitely a massive amount of potential left for Wario if more of the core material was included. Now, Game & Watch is tough, no new series material, so hard to imagine a complete overhaul, but he'd definitely get a greater variety of references in his hammer swing. Maybe being able to spawn a ball to throw as a projectile to reference the Game & Watch title of the same name, but I don't know how much crazier they'd go with a character like this. He's pretty unique already. In a similar vein to Game & Watch, I struggle with some of the older Fire Emblem characters. I think part of the appeal of Marth is in his playstyle. It's up close, physical, technical, the whole deal. So if he was made today with probably the only new material to draw from being his bonus appearances in newer games and the like, I find it difficult to make any significant changes that would fit well with his playstyle. If we put Vulnerary in his moveset, then it'll have to make you stop for a bit and heal up, breaking that pace that he's known for, and I think he'd be worse off for it, and the team would probably see it the same way. They know more than me. I think it's only marginal changes that would have been made if the desire is to keep the characters as fun to play as possible, which I think should be the ultimate goal of Smash. Roy, on the other hand, they already took some creative liberties with by making flames a large component of his design than it was originally in Fire Emblem, so if they still had that philosophy today, I could see them allowing you to swing the sword at the ground and have flames streak across the stage like Cloud's neutral B, and maybe more fire-based attacks to make him a little bit more unique from Marth. But again, that up-close physical playstyle should really be prioritized here. Roy's a very fun character to play. Ike could mainly get changes in the specials department as well, with Ragnell's aura causing a purple slash to hit the opponent from a short distance. He could also throw a bolt axe at the opponent, which could potentially stun them, something that would be helpful for Ike since he's obviously not very fast. More changes than some of the other Fire Emblem characters, but still not too significant either. Robin and Corrin probably won't get as many changes since number one, they're both in recent Smash games made to promote newer titles, the former who was considered much more unique compared to the current Fire Emblem cast of characters, while the other was DLC in her own right. So while it may not be Steve levels of uniqueness or whatever, it's still close enough so that these changes would only likely be marginal. This wouldn't be the case for Jigglypuff though, the last of the Smash 64 original fighters to cover today. Puff's reasoning for being in Smash in the first place was due to the ease of move reuse from Kirby combined with a desire for a second Pokemon rep since the series was getting really hot at the time, but because of that, there's some missed potential in my opinion. Since then, Puff's gotten many new moves, a new type, and is known much more as a cult icon for the series for her anime representation, almost more so than her video game appearances. Sing still makes sense to be included as a move, but nowadays she'd have to get some fairy type moves in her kit. Disarming Voice is an idea I've talked about in previous videos, one where we gave every fighter one more move, since it combines her notable trait of singing with the fairy typing, but there's so many more options to draw from. I'd love to see her use the marker from the anime to draw on characters while they're sleeping, which I think they would include since they'd have more time to add smaller details like this in a modern scenario. Mewtwo has gotten new updates since his Melee debut as well, with 2 Mega Evolution forms in Gen 6, and while Mewtwo Y was included as his final Smash, since we're creating a Mewtwo moveset from scratch, I'm not sure they'd want to include a mechanic which is no longer being implemented in series games in a modern appearance. Maybe include some setup attacks like Calm Mind, which could be used to increase ranged attack power and defense for a short period of time, as I'm not so sure that a mechanic like that exists in any other fighter on Smash right now, and uniqueness is what they tend to focus on for newer characters. His general playstyle would probably remain the same though, since his floatiness is very fitting for the character. Lucario has been in movies and was featured in a lot of promo material since his Brawl inclusion, and like Mewtwo has the issue of a Mega Evolution being his final Smash, which wasn't an issue in late 2018 when Ultimate came out, since Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee also included Megas. At that time, there wasn't much of an inclination for them to be taken out for good. Lucario's aura charging and similar moves to Mewtwo Mewtwo were likely done to serve as a modern replacement of sorts for the cut Mewtwo back in Brawl, but unfortunately that makes Lucario very range-based, and while there are some special Lucario sets used in competitive play, his physical attack is almost the same. So giving him some more power-based up-close attacks would be much more fitting for the character, like Meteor Mash, Brick Break, Close Combat, and the like. Bullet Punch would also have to be included as a dash, that's one of his most iconic moves. Greninja is a very funny case to me, since his set was conceived before the Pokemon made his debut in X and Y, so there was a lot of material provided for the character before he was actually playable. I think it'd be pretty cool if they incorporated Protean into his moveset. This ability changes Greninja's type to match the move that you just used, and while it's kind of difficult to imagine how the mechanic itself would be applied in Smash, the desire to get it in would at least give them a reason to add a greater diversity of move types into his moveset. Ice Beam, Gunk Shot, and the like are good options. Canonically, it doesn't really make much sense though, since his final Smash and Ultimate is Ash Greninja, a very fitting final Smash I might add. He has the Battle Bond ability there and not Protean, so it wouldn't really make sense for him to have two abilities, but I'm not really sure how much they care about that. Battle Bond may also be changed to be included if he knocks out the opponent to gain the form, kind of like how Ash Greninja, if he knocks out an opponent in battle, will gain the form. But in terms of a general move, he's got to at least get Dark Pulse or something, though. Not having a move of the Dark type is really odd, although I suppose the ones that they gave to him are fitting for a Ninja type Pokemon, but it would be a very fitting move to get. Incineroar, as we'll see with most of the Ultimate base game characters, is tough to imagine many changes for. While it seems like the majority of the DLC fighters got a bigger focus, Ultimate still has some unique movesets in there, and Incineroar, while I'm not personally much of a fan of how the character plays, still has most of his references covered here. He's designed to be a wrestler Pokemon, and he certainly pulls it off. Maybe adding more fire attacks into his moveset would be cool, like Flame Charge to be able to increase his speed upon each hit, but I doubt he'd get any significant reworks. The same could sort of be said for K. Rool, Ridley, and Simon. All have unique movesets with plenty of series material that's referenced and haven't been in any new games since their Ultimate inclusion, so I doubt much would change. I don't think that would be the case for Inkling though. With Splatoon 2 releasing in mid-2017 and the plans for Ultimate's characters dating back to over a year prior to that, it's likely that Inkling's moveset would have been entirely based on Splatoon 1 content, which, as we've seen with their playable appearance, turned out to be true. If Inkling came out today though, I think they'd have to include some Splatoon 2 weapons. The dually should be here, as it would act like a slight counter option by rolling out of the way of an oncoming attack and then being able to shoot at the opponent with them, and the Killer Whale couldn't be the final Smash anymore since it just doesn't exist in Splatoon 2. Maybe the Tenta missiles could work since they're pretty iconic, but in general I wouldn't see them entirely erasing the Splatoon 1 content since a lot was carried over from Splatoon 1 to 2. It's just I think they would be much more likely to include moves to promote the newer game. And maybe if they had advanced plans of Splatoon 3, they could include that too. Inkling's one of Nintendo's bigger new characters now, so that's probably a character that they would give some priority to. Speaking of some of Nintendo's bigger characters modernly, Isabelle and Villager were also included in newer Smash games, meaning that they have a lot of new mechanics. And because of the very peaceful nature of Animal Crossing compared to many of the other series in Smash, this resulted in many original attacks being included out of necessity. If they released today, I doubt there'd be much change other than them both possibly being more distinct from one another, considering that's sort of what we're going for here. More references to New Horizons I think should be expected considering the massive popularity of that game. Now, Wii Fit Trainer debuted in Smash 4 to the surprise of many, but one mechanic I was pretty surprised to have not seen with the characters, the use of the Wii Balance Board. The Wii Balance Board is still a very memorable item today, and if Ring Fit did indeed join Smash at one point, they would definitely have a great contrast if one had the balance board and the other used the Ring Con. Maybe when using her deep breathing move, she could stand on the balance board as an extra detail with this new idea, or perhaps it could be used as a weapon by swinging it as a smash attack, which would be pretty funny. They wouldn't have to worry about this being a bad influence on kids who might try to mimic this move in real life because they're not selling this item anymore. One of Smash 4's most notable additions were the Mii Fighters, because it essentially allowed you to create your own movesets, although the ideas are fairly limited. There would definitely be some more slight adjustments made to the attacks that could be selected in this vein, with you being able to, let's say, increase the strength of one move to then take that power away from another for balancing's sake, and you could customize it to your liking. And the possibilities for completely different moves would likely be expanded on for all three types. The possibilities are limitless. Snake has quite a few possibilities for changes, but they all may be hindered by whatever happens with his age rating. If he was included in a DLC type role, as we saw with Smash 4's Bayonetta, she's able to fire bullets from guns. I don't see why Snake wouldn't be allowed to use a pistol in that vein either, a move which would be very fitting for him. Metal Gear has a variety of cool weapons that could be incorporated, again assuming that the ratings board passes it. But as of right now, he's fairly unique on his own, so not much desperately needs to be changed. Speaking of Bayonetta, there hasn't been a new game in the series since her Smash 4 inclusion, since Bayonetta 3 just doesn't want to come out, it seems like. So unless they have advanced information, I could see her moveset remaining mostly the same if she was released today. Diddy Kong may be a completely different story though. Hear me out on this. What if Diddy Kong wasn't the only character in this slot? What if Dixie fought alongside him like the Ice Climbers? Dixie was said to have been intended to be included in the roster of Brawl, but got cut. She may have been intended to be a clone of Diddy or outright take Diddy's spot, So if they wanted to include her back then and didn't now with Echo Fighters being a huge deal, it wouldn't have completely taken me off guard to see her implemented alongside Diddy. The two team up in Donkey Kong Country games, that's their gimmick. So if they wanted to go above and beyond with a new Diddy Kong moveset and a DLC type role, this could definitely be the way to go, with them using Dixie's twirling hair as recovery while retaining some of the current moves that Diddy's known for. If that's cheating and we're only modifying Diddy here, there could be an attack that's added where he drives across the stage in a cart to reference Diddy Kong Racing, but considering how that was a rare game, I'm not so sure as to the likelihood of it. But if the moveset is Diddy Kong specific, I feel this game should absolutely be referenced. It's his game. Olimar is another brawl fighter who I feel could use an update. Since his implementation, he's gotten alphas and alt, but no new moves from that character, so maybe including the Rock Pikmin from 3 would be a good place to start by referencing a newer title, even though Olimar himself isn't shown to be using this type of Pikmin. And hey, I don't know how popular this would be, but if Nintendo is deciding on this change, I feel the jetpack from Hey Pikmin could work as a recovery. They're probably not desperately trying to promote this game anymore since it was on the 3DS after all, but outside of ports, it is indeed the newest Pikmin game, which I'm sure all fans are happy about, right? King Dedede had one of the most unique moves I've seen in Smash history with the Waddle Dee throwback in Brawl, where you chuck these enemies at the opponents and have them attack them. I get that they wanted to include newer references by getting rid of this move in future Smash titles, but perhaps with a full DLC moveset they could incorporate an option where you could do one of throwing these guys or hitting the Gordos with the same move slot, depending on how long you hold down B. Adding more elements to his hammer could be likely as well, such as throwing it or shooting a missile from it as seen in his Superstar Ultra boss fight. Just generally enhancing the current moves that he has I think is the likely direction for them to go. They went through the effort to change his Final Smash for Ultimate, yet it's still not the most fitting new reference since Star Allies was a newer release. But if Dedede came out today, this would absolutely be the choice. Pac-Man and Mega Man are both characters who seem to have a lot of attention to detail given for their movesets. With the former, I don't see him getting too much more unique than he already is unless they went for a full-on 2D Pac-Man inspired kit, and Mega Man obviously has many more abilities which can be used, but an opinion I frequently see in the community is the desire to have these abilities come in separate representatives for the series in Smash, rather than giving them all to just Mega Man. There's 5 of these guys in the final Smash now. Another one of them making their playable debut in the future might not be the worst idea. Rosalina and Luma are unique in that they're essentially 2 characters, but there's more content from Galaxy which could be incorporated in her set if they really wanted to. What if they took some creative liberties by using the Star Bits, for example? The power-ups that Mario uses in Galaxy could be a fun addition to her kit as well, and while she's not shown to use those ones in her playable appearance in 3D World, she does indeed have the ability to use these upgrades, so it's a possibility for sure. Bowser Jr. on the other hand, I don't think there would be too much of a change for, unless they wanted to take him out of the clown car and give him a moveset more so inspired by Sunshine and New Super Mario Bros. DS, but I doubt that concept changes. The Koopalings have taken on a more prominent role in 2D Mario games over the years, and they all have their wands which are present in each game, but are not usable in Smash as an attack. And there should definitely be something added for that. They already have the animation for it in the game, but the attack itself may have been left out due to a lack of development time, since Junior is confirmed to have been one of the last characters added for Smash 4's roster. Little Mac has some issues with how his moveset concept actually turns out when playing the game. While I'm sure the intentions were good, as you can see a lot of the thought and inspiration behind the attacks that he uses, yet he flounders in the low to bottom tiers as a fighter, and while this video isn't meant to address competitive viability since it wouldn't make sense if we're reworking every character to imagine that Ultimate's metagame would even be remotely close to what it is now, nevertheless, there's still some fan complaints about Little Mac, so how do you fix it? Well, if more time was given to a new version of the character, they could add the heart system from Punch-Out! You start out the match with a certain number of hearts, and as you take more and more damage or get hit with powerful blows, something like that, you'll lose hearts and your abilities would be hindered. To compensate for this, Little Mac would be very fast and powerful to start off, and his air game would need to be improved at least a little bit. Change the recovery to him gliding with the towel that Doc Lewis throws in or something. I get that he canonically won't be going too high in the air, but for the sake of the fighter, changes will need to be made, as they were with Link even before he gained the ability to jump in future Zelda titles. Rules like this are broken all the time, and with a character as irrelevant to modern Nintendo as this guy is, I don't see why they're so desperate to maintain this slight piece of canon. I don't want to come off as sounding too negative on the character in this section, but it honestly just comes out of a hope for improvement for the future since I like the series and hate how its sole representative's legacy is living on today, only now being recognized for how lame of a character he is in a fighting game. Shulk I don't see take that much heat because mostly Xenoblade fans have been happy in recent years with all the new games and content and likely don't harbor as much resentment as fans of many other franchises would, but Shulk to me at least isn't living up to his full potential either. Yeah, the Monado Arts is a cool mechanic allowing him to change his stats, but that being the only defining aspect to the character wouldn't stand too well if given the ultimate DLC treatment. Using other Monado attacks I think is the way to go. Give Monado Purge as a projectile which could stun the opponent for a moment, adding to his already existing concept of being able to see the future as you'd better be able to calculate your next move with this extra bit of time. Cyclone could be a cool new recovery as well, which when combined with the jump art would mean that he's definitely going to be getting back on the stage for sure. There's more that they could add as well, but in general, right now I feel he's fine as a fighter, but he could just use a bit more if he was released today, so there could be some decent changes in store. Duck Hunt turned out to be a very unique character considering the little amount of source material that they had to work with, so I doubt he'd get any significant changes if released today. Same goes for Ryu and Cloud, who were both Smash 4 DLC with a ton of focus and development time behind them since they were released late in the DLC window, after characters like Mewtwo and Lucas, who the team already had the moveset plans for. And as a result, these two have a ton of unique moveset mechanics, so I doubt they'd be very different if released today, but I can't say the same for our final character, Sonic. One of gaming's biggest icons and Mario's iconic rival from the 90s got completely shafted in Smash Bros. Being another victim of Brawl's development time crunch only getting added late, he received some downright lazy move animations which, because of the desire to focus on the new and not as much on the old, never got updated over the years even if there was an opportunity. But what potential is there really? Well, let's start with boosting. One of the main mechanics from newer Sonic games would have to be included in a modern version of the character. He'd be able to fill up the tension gauge throughout the battle and have a burst of speed once it reaches a certain point, which could inflict damage on the opponents, but the main mechanic would obviously be the increased speed that he'll receive while in this state. Since the team loved referencing older material for Sonic's initial moveset, they may still want to do that modernly, which is fine because there's still plenty that they could go off of. What if for a new down special, he'd be able to break open an item box where there's a wide variety that he'd be able to use? The standard, fire, bubble, and lightning shields could all provide different benefits, creating a sense of RNG for the character in clutch moments to receive a beneficial item, while also being able to reset for a specific item after you knock out your opponents, allowing you to have an advantage when they return to get the jump on them again, which should ultimately be Sonic's goal as a fast rushdown fighter. The Sonic rings could also be found here on a chance, which is an absolute must reference in this scenario, and maybe they could heal you or contribute to your boost gauge or something like that. In this scenario, he'd still need a recovery and the spin dash, which we could keep, but if they still wanted to go even further down this rabbit hole of uniqueness, there's still a ton available which is unique to different Sonic games. Could Werehog from Sonic Unleashed be incorporated as a more powerful form of the character in a clutch moment? What about the Chaos Emeralds? Super Sonic doesn't just have to be a final smash, you could collect these throughout the match and have this be a boosted version of the character later on, kinda like Lucario's Aura or Joker's Arsene, just with the items this time around. Hey, Sonic Colors Ultimate is a newer release, using the color powers from there would indeed be a cool tie-in if Sonic was released in Smash today as well. It's been a fun time coming up with ideas to give every fighter in Smash Ultimate the same type of treatment as the fighters that were DLC got. And I can only imagine the ones that you might have, so maybe share one for your favorite fighter down below and we could get a discussion going down there. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this on your way very soon, and I'll see you next time. Take care.